Chapter 5, Part 1. How long has it been since that last train ride? Almost 3 years. We left Frankfurt in October 1941, when I was 14, and now it's August 1944, and I'm 17. I suppose I'm lucky to have lived this long. Again, I'm on a train. Again, I don't know where I'm going, only where I'm coming from. We left Lodz at around 4 o'clock this afternoon. The Nazis told us we were going to a work camp, but I know that, for the Nazis, lying is as natural as murder. People moan, children cry for water, there is only an open bucket for a toilet, and the stench is unbearable. Unbearable, what a word! Is there nothing we haven't learned to bear? 100 people are packed into this closed freight car, and I know that many won't survive if this trip is a long one. I think back to that first train trip, the one from Frankfurt to Lodz, and how terrible I thought it was. But now, stuck in this freight car, I know what true terror and misery are. I didn't bring my album, but I brought some of my pictures. The rest I hid. Memories, pictures, that's all I have left. How will they murder me? A shot in the head? Buried alive in a pit? Some other way I cannot even imagine? No, I will not spend my last hours dwelling on that. The train rocks and sways. I lean against the filthy wall and jealously guard my spot. A small crack in the wood allows a faint beam of light to sift across my hands. I look at the pictures I have just removed from my boot. They are so worn and I have looked at them so often I can tell them apart almost by their feel. This one of Erica and me has a small piece torn off the corner. This one of Rosa is frayed at the bottom, and on and on. But I don't want just to feel them, remember them. I want one last look, one last good look. I will go over them one by one, and I will remember. I look at the first picture, the ray of light slanting across it. I know this one so well. Mother and Father and Erica have looked at it so often that it is practically wrinkled. I call it the family reunion. We are all there, except Uncle Aaron and his family, and Uncle David and Aunt Lot. Uncle Leo and Auntie Anna and their children Nathan, Jacob, and George arrived in Lodz from Berlin just after we arrived. Auntie Leah is there with her 4 children, Uncle Walter and Auntie Hanel and their 3 children, Oma Rachel and Opa Samuel. No one is smiling. Erica is 12 in this picture and very pretty. The Jewish authorities, who were forced by the Nazis to organize the ghetto, put us in an old school. There were about 60 people per room. We slept on wooden planks and were given soup from a soup kitchen that was set up. We still had food with us. Mother had insisted on bringing all the food we could carry. She also insisted that we pack our warmest clothes and our best winter coats, and wear our ski boots. I had laughed. Ski boots, Mother? I teased. I don't think they're sending us on a holiday. What are the warmest boots you own? She asked. The ski boots, I'd admitted. They were also practically brand new, as we'd never had the chance to wear them. I'd grown into Father's and Erica had grown into mine by the time we left. Mother and Father took their old ones. I'm wearing Father's now. They still have no holes in them. They may have saved my life. While others tried to struggle through the winters in shoes, we had warm boots. Sometimes when it was winter in Frankfurt, I'd run out to do something with my friends, leaving my winter coat behind on purpose. It was the fashionable thing to do in our age group. Coats were considered strictly for adults. Mother used to scold me and swear I'd catch pneumonia. I never did. I enjoyed the cold, boasted to my friends how red my feet were, how little I needed to wear when I was outside. But how different to be running from one warm house to another than to be trapped day and night in an unheated school when the temperature is 25 degrees and people are suffering from frostbite and malnutrition. We've been there only a week when our own food supply ran out. Many people in the school started selling their clothes for food. Uncle Leo did that, thinking that at any minute these conditions would improve. Father forbade any of us to sell anything. "We don't know how long we will be here," he said one night at a meeting of the entire family in a corner of one of the large cold rooms. "We must behave prudently at all times. Never lose our heads. Keep all your warm clothes. Ration your food carefully. We are given 1 loaf of bread each, which must last us 6 days. No one is allowed to finish that loaf on the first or even the second day. It must last, or by the end of the week we could easily starve." Starve. Everyone shifted uncomfortably. And yet we knew it was true. The shock of what we saw when we first entered the ghetto will never leave me. People were actually starving to death. Lodz was a city that had hundreds of thousands of Jews in it before the war. Many fled east when the war began. The rest had been pushed into the poorest, dirtiest area in the city. They had tried to clean it up to make it habitable, but it would never be anything but a slum full of old apartment buildings and small wooden houses, only a few with running water, heat, or plumbing. Many streets were made of mud, and you sank into it when you walked. The smell of all those people crammed together in such a small area with no sanitation was terrible. Over that winter, people died in the streets and laid unburied for days. And Uncle Leo, who had stubbornly refused to listen to Father, sure that things would improve, learned that Father had been right when his youngest son, George, developed frostbite in his hands and feet because Leo had sold some of their warm clothes. The frostbite got infected. George got thinner and thinner. We all did, of course. When all you have to eat is a few ounces of bread a day and a bowl of soup, what can you expect? One cold February night, George went to sleep and never woke up. We had to wait 3 days for them to come and bury him because the waiting list was so long. 3 days! Auntie Anna didn't cry. She just sat with him day and night until they took him away. After that, she seemed to lose the will to live. She got thinner and thinner, and one morning, she too didn't wake up. We were surrounded by death. I remembered when one death would be such a tragedy the whole community would mourn. Life was normal. Death for a young child or an adult in middle age was not. But suddenly everything was wrong, upside down. It seemed more normal to die than to live. I look at the picture again. So few of us are left. In the spring, the Germans decided to ship out most of those newly arrived from Germany once again. Transports from Lodz had been leaving all winter. They were dreaded because people didn't know where they were going, but they feared the worst. And then the notices came for Uncle Leo and his 2 sons, and Uncle Walter and his whole family, and Auntie Leah and her children, but not for us. Because Father was a World War I hero, he was exempt. The Jewish authorities in charge of housing found us an apartment, and we were finally able to move out of the school. Father begged them to let Oma Rachel and Opa Samuel stay with us, and he begged for the rest of the family too. In the end, they let Oma Rachel and Opa Samuel stay, and Auntie Leah was able to convince them she could be of use to them as a nurse, so they let her and her children stay. The others were shipped off. I remember the hugs and kisses, the tears. We never heard from any of them again. Are they all dead, or have they somehow survived until now, like us? I don't think the Nazis will let any of us survive. If they can manage to finish the job, they will. I can see the next picture, just faintly in the light. It is a picture of a radio. To me, this picture is not just of a radio, but a symbol of defiance, resistance. All radios have been banned to Jews in Frankfurt years earlier, but Father refused to hand in ours. He kept it hidden in the basement, and we would listen for news of the war secretly in the cellar. He couldn't take it with us when we left. He knew we'd be searched, but when we arrived in Lodz, one of the first things he did was trade a box of noodles for a radio from a local resident. Of course, this radio too was illegal, but when we moved into our apartment, we found it had a small cupboard built into the wall. We put a bed in front of the cupboard and the radio inside it. As the war dragged on, we listened to broadcasts in German from the BBC. Father knew that we could all be deported or shot if they discovered the radio. But he also knew that hope was as important as bread, perhaps more important. It gave us some dignity knowing that in this small way